Tyler Graves, the Death Worlder, defying the odds. In the cold silence of deep space, one name carried an almost mythic weight: Tyler Graves. Born in the concrete jungles of Earth's post-collapse megacities and forged by its relentless death-world storms, Tyler wasn't just another cadet. He was a force of nature, a storm wrapped in human skin. With a cocky grin, combat-scarred knuckles, and the scars of 1,000 close calls, he walked into Galactic Training Station Theta like he owned the place. And maybe, in some way, he did. He'd survived wildfires that swallowed cities, floods that reshaped continents, and creatures that made even xenobeasts pause. On Earth, survival wasn't a skill, it was a birthright. Tyler wore that legacy like a second skin. But now, on the edge of known space, among the finest minds and fiercest warriors from every corner of the galaxy, he stood at a new edge, one far more lethal than anything his home had thrown at him. Everyone called him reckless, arrogant, a ticking bomb, and maybe they were right. But Tyler didn't fear destruction. He embraced it, because when everything wants you dead, you learn fast, you adapt faster, and when the test comes, you defy the odds, or you die trying. Lyra Vazina, the observing intelligence of the Zia thrived from the moment she arrived. Lyra Vazina was a silent storm of thought, a Zia Thri prodigy born under the crystalline skies of Y Shao Prime. She had spent her youth immersed in knowledge, mastering languages, physics, and the art of neutral diplomacy. Her people believed in clarity, in logic, in calm. Humanity, in contrast, was chaos. She observed Tyler Graves from a distance, this loud, unpredictable human, with fire in his eyes and dirt under his nails. He represented everything the Zia Thri found primitive, but there was something else, something curious. Despite his rawness, Tyler survived. No matter the pressure, the pain, or the impossibility, he endured, and that fascinated her. Inside, Lyra warred with herself. Could something as unruly as humanity really hold value in a test of higher order, or would their passion be their downfall? She couldn't help but feel a strange pull toward Tyler, not out of affection, but inquiry. What made his mind tick? How did instinct triumph over intellect in a species so backward? She didn't trust him, not yet, but she couldn't ignore him either. The Galactic Training Station Theta, a monument to trials, floating like a silent sentinel at the edge of the galactic rim. Station Theta was a marvel of engineering and cruelty, built by the united consortium of civilized systems. It stretched for kilometers in all directions, cold, black, and indifferent. Every inch of it was a test. Every corridor whispered, "You are not ready." It housed simulations so complex they'd driven lesser cadets mad, artificial environments that mimicked death worlds, war zones, and political powder kegs with terrifying precision. Each floor was its own hell, and no two species faced the same path. Inside its steel belly, cadets trained for war, diplomacy, espionage, and survival. They were stripped bare and reforged. For many, Station Theta was their last stop. For those who survived, it was the beginning of greatness. Tyler walked its halls like he had something to prove. Lyra walked them like she had something to learn. The station waited for both. The Galactic War Simulation, a deadly game of strategy and survival. It was called the Sim, short for Galactic War Simulation. But it was more than a game. It was a 10-year crucible, a nightmare coded in algorithms and artificial intelligence so advanced it bordered on sentience. Inside it, the cadets lived new lives, fought interstellar wars, brokered fragile alliances, and made decisions that could doom or save entire civilizations. Tyler and Lyra were placed in the same simulation unit. The rules were simple: survive, lead, and win. But nothing in the sim was what it seemed. Trust was a weapon, betrayal a currency. Every move was recorded, every failure had consequences. For some species, lasting even one galactic cycle was a win. Most never made it past 3. Humans? They were the anomaly, the unpredictable factor the simulation could never quite account for. Their logic was flawed, but their instinct was terrifying. Tyler, with his earthborn madness, didn't follow the code. He rewrote it. He didn't just survive, he hunted the Sims' challenges like they owed him something. Lyra watched, torn between admiration and disbelief. Conflict brewing, underestimating humanity's edge. The other cadets sneered at the humans. Primitive, reckless, emotional. They whispered that Earth should never have been allowed into the program, that their presence diluted the sanctity of the training. Tyler heard them all, and grinned wider. He didn't need their approval. He had something better, a bone-deep desire to prove every last one of them wrong. And he wasn't alone. Other human cadets, from different regions of Earth, carried that same fire. They shared glances, silent nods, an unspoken pact. We're going to burn this place into legend. Even Lyra, now reluctantly paired with Tyler, began to sense it. His chaos had a rhythm, his madness, a method, and maybe, just maybe, the others were right to be afraid. Station Theta had tested empires. Now it would face something far more dangerous. Humanity with something to prove. The briefing, an impossible task unveiled. The lights dimmed in the towering hall of the Galactic Training Station Theta, casting shadows across the cadets seated in tense silence. Tyler Graves stood near the front, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The room pulsed with anticipation as a hollow map flickered to life in front of them, displaying the spiraling chaos of a galactic war zone. The voice of Commandant Voss rumbled across the chamber. Welcome to the Galactic War Simulation. Your mission, lead your faction to victory over a 10-year span. You will engage in politics, war, diplomacy, and survival against species far more advanced than your own. Tyler swallowed hard. It wasn't the combat that worried him. It was everything else. Political alliances, negotiation. They weren't trained diplomats. They were cadets. But this was the real test. Not brute force, not raw strength. Strategy, survival. Dozens of factions were represented in the simulation, from the emotionless Tauran coalition to the cybernetically enhanced Danai. Each would seek power, and now, Earth's cadets, armed with little more than grit, were expected to hold their ground. Tyler glanced at his team. Some were wide-eyed, others already looked defeated. But not him, not today. Underdogs in the eyes of the galaxy. As the briefing ended, murmurs rose like a wave. Most came from the non-human cadets, speaking in clipped, mocking tones. The skepticism was so thick it almost suffocated the room. Primitive species, a Zarnov cadet scoffed, his voice a metallic hiss, barely qualified to hold a blaster. The instructors didn't hide their disdain either. A Zerthi intelligence officer floated past Tyler, its eyes unreadable. Human initiative is energetic, it said, with veiled sarcasm. Tyler felt the heat rise in his chest. He could take the insults, but seeing his team, his people belittled, dismissed and doubted, that struck a different nerve. We've survived hell on Earth, he muttered. Let's see how they handle a piece of it. The others looked to him, unsure, but Tyler's fire was contagious. He didn't need everyone to believe, just enough to fight. The human advantage, resilience. In the face of adversity, Tyler stepped forward, cutting through the doubt like a knife. You all think we're weak, he said, voice rising, because we don't have quantum fleets or telepathic drones. But let me tell you something. We come from the deadliest planet in this galaxy. Silence fell. He looked each alien cadet in the eye. We survive ice, fire, plague, famine, war, daily. Our world tries to kill us every damn day, and we're still here. One of the human cadets, a quiet girl named Ada, clenched her fists. Another, Marcus, sat up straighter. Tyler continued. We don't need the best gear. We are the gear.
When systems fail, when strategies break down, we adapt. That's what humans do. His words cut through the tension like a blade. Even the skeptical instructors paused. In that moment, the human cadets weren't afraid. They were ready. The simulation begins. Chaos unleashed. The simulation began with a shuddering roar. Tyler's team materialized on a rocky world, codenamed Ravix 9. Their base, a fortified bunker, stood in the center of a scorched valley. Before anyone could react, the sky lit up in a blinding flash. Incoming, Tyler shouted. The Mezari descended like vultures. Bombardment cannons tore through the outer defenses. Screams filled the comms. Half the team was separated. Dust, fire, and panic ruled. Tyler ducked behind a shattered wall, heart racing. This wasn't a drill. This was war. Regroup on me, he barked. But the Mezari were too fast. Plasma bolts rained down like hellfire. Marcus, bleeding from a shoulder wound, yelled, "They're jamming our systems. We're blind." Ada scrambled to get their comms online. "We need orders." But Tyler didn't have a plan. Not yet. Everything was falling apart. "Think," he growled to himself. "They hit fast. They want us to panic." And panic they did. The human cadets were outmatched, but they hadn't lost. Not yet. A glimmer of hope. Tyler's first move. Tyler spotted a ridge, a bottleneck in the Mezari's advance. It was suicide, but it was also their only shot. Everyone left standing. "Follow me," he ordered. "We hit them hard. No time to wait." Marcus shook his head. "We'll die." "Maybe," Tyler said, gripping his rifle. "But not on our knees." The team rallied. Ada managed to restore short-range comms. "Flank pattern 3. Now." Tyler led the charge, sprinting through the wreckage. Plasma fire zipped past him. Explosions shook the earth. But for a moment, the Mezari hesitated. Humans weren't supposed to counterattack. Tyler's team hit the flank with everything they had. Explosives, guerrilla tactics, traps made from scrap. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. The Mezari's front line buckled. "We've got them reeling," Marcus shouted. "Push them back." It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a moment, a crack in the enemy's armor. Proof that humans could fight smart, not just hard. As the dust settled, Tyler stood among the ruins, bloodied and breathless. "This is just the beginning," he said. His team, bruised, battered, alive, stood with him, and the galaxy had just been warned. Never underestimate Earth. The sky burned with streaks of plasma fire, and the ground shook with each distant impact. Tyler Graves stood at the heart of the chaos, his breath shallow, eyes darting over the tactical screen as red markers bled across the display. The Mezari weren't just attacking, they were dominating. Their weapons bent gravity, their ships moved like predators in water, and their tactics shifted so fast it felt like fighting a storm. "We're outmatched," whispered Cadet Jensen, clutching a rifle far too advanced for their limited training. Tyler didn't answer. He couldn't afford to. Every choice now had weight. Every command could mean life or death. And just as he began issuing orders to regroup, a new horror emerged. Systems began failing, not due to Mezari attacks, but from within. "Sir, someone just rerouted our comms internally," shouted Lyra, the Cirthia communications officer, her normally cool tone edged with alarm. "We've been sabotaged." Tyler's blood ran cold. Betrayal, not from the enemy, but from within their own ranks. "Secure the command center. Lock down all internal access. No one moves without clearance," he barked.
Distrust spread like wildfire. Every glance became suspicious. Every order questioned, but Tyler pushed through. He had to. Survival depended not just on fighting the Mezari, but rooting out the shadows hiding among them, clashing ideals. Tyler versus Lyra. The briefing room flickered under emergency lights. Lyra paced slowly, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You act on instinct," she said, voice cold. "Chaos is not strategy, Tyler. You gamble with lives." And you act like war is a math problem. Tyler shot back. Sometimes, the only strategy is to move, even if the numbers don't add up. Their voices rose, echoing off the steel walls around them. Cadets exchanged uncertain looks. The tension had reached its breaking point. Lyra stepped forward, eyes narrowed. Your recklessness will get us all killed. Tyler stared her down. And your hesitation already has. The silence that followed was suffocating, but in that moment, something shifted. The cadets who once looked to Lyra for guidance turned to Tyler. They saw not just defiance, but hope. He didn't have all the answers, but he was willing to risk everything to find them. Lyra, quotes, Ish frown deepened, but she said nothing more. The war had chosen its leader, a desperate gamble. Turning the table's smoke curled from the shattered ridges of the rocky outpost. The Mezari ships hovered like vultures, their blue energy fields crackling through the atmosphere. Tyler's team had nowhere left to run. We're surrounded, said Sergeant Mendez. Supplies are down to 20%. We won't survive another assault. Tyler stood silent for a moment, gazing at the volatile terrain. Earth wasn't just a battlefield, it was a weapon. We don't run, he said. We fight like Earth taught us, with fire, storms, and fury. Using seismic charges meant for mining, they rigged the fault lines. Tyler coordinated with the few weather drones still functional, hacking them to overload cloud formations into superstorms. Thus the Mezari descended, expecting an easy slaughter. They were met with the planet's raw, unrelenting power. Lightning shattered their ranks. Earthquakes split their formations. Lava spewed from fractured rock, tearing through their machines. The battlefield became a nightmare, and Tyler's team became ghosts in the chaos. The plan was madness. It was brutal, but it worked. The Mezari retreated, broken and disoriented. As the storm began to clear, Tyler stood among the ruins, armor scorched, eyes blazing with resolve. Let them fear us, he muttered. Let them remember. Shockwaves across the galaxy. A new kind of war. The footage spread like wildfire across the Galactic Cadet Network. The Mezari, undefeated champions of the simulation, were forced into retreat within hours by a human-led squad. Analysts called it impossible. Instructors stared in stunned silence. Commander Yultan, of the Zahn Consortium, once a vocal critic of humanity's inclusion, now studied Tyler's tactics with uneasy admiration. They don't think like we do, he said, and that may be the most dangerous strength of all. Lyra watched from the back of the observation chamber, her expression unreadable. Chaos, emotion, unpredictability, she whispered. Maybe that's not weakness. Maybe it's what we needed. For the first time in the simulation's history, the humans weren't behind. They were leading the charge, redefining the rules. New alliances and new challenges. Respect didn't come easy, but it came. Cadets from the Volari, the steel-skinned Darneks, even a few cautious Zarnov, approached Tyler's team, not with contempt, but curiosity. You fight like nothing I've ever seen, said Koran, a reptilian tactician from the Talic race, and I want in. Tyler shook his hand without hesitation. The war wasn't over, it had barely begun, but the battlefield had changed. The humans weren't just players in the game. They were rewriting it, and Tyler Graves wasn't fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting to lead a new era of war, one born from chaos, grit, and a relentless will to win. Let's see what the galaxy throws at us next, he said, staring into the void beyond the station. We're ready. The sky over the simulation battlefield was a swirl of shifting light and color, a constructed world of infinite possibility and imminent danger. Tyler stood at the edge of the human camp, his jaw clenched, eyes scanning the horizon. He could feel it. The Zirathi were close. Their presence carried weight, not in sound, but in pressure, like the calm before a cosmic storm.
The Zirathi were legendary, masters of strategy, wielders of the most advanced military tech the galaxy had ever known. They had waited patiently, watching, analyzing every mistake. Now, they were closing in, and everyone knew it. Tyler's team was outmatched in every way. They didn't have the firepower, they didn't have the numbers, but they had something else, something the Zirathi never accounted for. Around him, tension gripped the cadets like a vice. Even the bravest among them whispered doubts. Tyler felt the pressure. Every order could mean survival or death. He looked at his team. Some were barely holding it together. He knew he had to keep them focused, not with bravado, but with belief that we're not here to win like they do. Tyler said quietly, we're here to win like humans, outgunned, outnumbered, and outwitted. The battle of wits. The Zirathi launched their assault with terrifying precision. Drones swarmed like locusts, ships sliced through the sky, in perfect formation. But Tyler didn't flinch. He gathered his team in a ravine, shielded by jagged cliffs. They crouched among the rocks, panting, battered, but not broken. Tyler's mind raced. The Zirathi's strength was in their predictability. Every move followed a pattern, a logical structure. But humans, they were chaos in motion. They expect us to react, Tyler said, sketching on a cracked display. So we won't. He laid out a plan. Improvised, untested, risky. They'd use the terrain to disrupt the X patterns, flood the valleys, jam their sensors, bait them into choke points. Lyra, the Zirathi defector, who had joined their squad, stared at him with skepticism. This is illogical, she said. It has too many variables. Tyler grinned. Exactly. Turning the tide. Human ingenuity prevails. The ground trembled as the first phase unfolded. Explosive charges redirected rivers into enemy paths. Smoke from burning foliage disrupted infrared scans. Makeshift mirrors blinded Zirathi targeting systems. Tyler's team moved like ghosts in the chaos. The Zirathi's coordinated assault fractured. Without clean data, they faltered. Units stumbled into ambushes. Drones collided mid-air. Their perfect formation broke into confusion. Lyra watched in disbelief. They're unraveling. They're not built for this, Tyler said, wiping sweat from his brow. But we are. In a daring move, they hacked a downed Zirathi walker, turning its weapons on its own ranks. The enemy reeled, too slow to adapt. For the first time, the humans had seized control, not through brute force, but by rewriting the rules of engagement. The final push. Humanity's willpower conquers all. With the Zirathi reeling, Tyler gave the signal. The team surged forward, relentless and wild. They moved through the battlefield like a storm. Coordinated chaos. Each cadet improvising, adapting. Tyler led from the front, not as a commander, but as one of them. Every breath he took was laced with adrenaline. Every move mattered. The Zirathi scrambled to regroup, but they were too late. What was once a calculated war became a whirlwind of instinct and grit, and in that space, humans thrived. Their plan was brutal, costly, but effective. The battle, which should have lasted hours, ended in 45 minutes. When the dust settled, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Wreckage littered the terrain. Silence hung heavy in the air. Lyra approached Tyler, her voice quiet. You broke them. Tyler looked past the smoke. No, we showed them something they never saw coming. The aftermath, an unlikely triumph. The simulation flickered to an end. The virtual battlefield dissolved into light. Silence gave way to a chorus of stunned murmurs. The watching instructors, alien veterans of countless wars, stood motionless, their assumptions shattered. Humanity had done it. They defeated the Zirathi, not with superior weapons, but with unbreakable will, with a mind that refused to follow the script. Across the galactic training station Theta, cadets gathered in awe. Tyler's team had become legends overnight. The whispers of Earth's unpredictability were now spoken with respect. Lyra, once a skeptic, now stood beside Tyler, silent in her realization. The galaxy had changed, the rules had changed, and it was humanity that changed them. Tyler glanced at his team. This was just the beginning, because for all their flaws, all their chaos, humanity had one thing no other species did. The courage to face the impossible and make it blink first. Galactic Training Station. Theta was in chaos.
Every hallway buzzed with disbelief. Aliens of all kinds crowded around the public terminals, watching replays of the impossible. The Exerthi had fallen, the unbreakable, unshakable Xerthi, defeated by a team of human cadets, led by a once overlooked Earthling named Tyler Reeve. Instructors stood in silence, their pride swallowed by confusion. Cadets murmured and pointed, unsure whether to cheer or question everything they'd been taught. The Exerthi had ruled the simulations for over a century. Their strategy was flawless, their precision terrifying, but it was all undone by human unpredictability. Words spread like wildfire. Tyler and his team, exhausted but alive, stepped off the simulation platform to a roaring crowd. Applause, disbelief, admiration. Even their fiercest critics stood back in awe. "We did the unthinkable," whispered Anya, Tyler's second dash-in-dash command. Tyler barely nodded. He was still trying to process what had happened, but the truth was already echoing through the station. Humanity was no longer the underdog. Human ingenuity, the strength that defied expectations in a quiet corner of the barracks. Tyler stared out the window into the vastness of space. The stars didn't seem so distant anymore. "It wasn't our weapons," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "It was us, our minds, our grit." He remembered the frantic planning, the endless doubts, and the chaos they'd embraced. Where the Exerthi relied on logic, humans thrived on pressure. They bent rules, twisted limitations, and made miracles out of messes. The galaxy had seen a flash of what humanity could do when backed into a corner, and that spark, Tyler knew, was only the beginning. The shifting perception, humanity earns respect across the galaxy. The Exerthi had never lost. Now they sat in silence, watching the battle logs with glowing eyes dimmed by defeat. For a species that had always seen emotion as weakness, the bitter taste of failure was foreign and deeply humbling. They had underestimated humanity. Across the galaxy, other species, some ancient, others newly spacefaring, took notice. The Zarnov broadcasted a formal salute. The Vastar held emergency diplomatic sessions. Tyler's team had done more than win a simulation. They had shaken the very foundation of galactic order. "Humans are wild cards," one Vastar official commented, "and wild cards win wars." Alliances were shifting. Commanders rewrote their training protocols, and for the first time, humans were being studied, not as curiosities, but as contenders. Tyler's new mission, leading humanity into a new era. The next morning, Tyler stood before the High Council. "Cadet Reeve," the holographic voice boomed, "you are no longer a cadet." He was offered command of the human fleet stationed near the Mezari front. The Mezari were unpredictable, dangerous, and fast becoming the most pressing threat in the galaxy. Tyler accepted without hesitation. He looked to his team, Anya, Raj, May, and the others, tired, proud, and ready. They had faced the unbeatable and emerged stronger. Now they would carry that spirit into real battle. "This is more than a victory," Tyler said later that night. "It's our beginning." The simulation had been a test. The real war had yet to come. And this time, the galaxy would be watching. Because now, humanity was ready to lead. The stars shimmered cold and distant over the war-torn expanse of Sector 9, where once silence ruled the void.
Now engines roared like ancient beasts, and the light of human warships carved burning trails through the black. At the center of it all stood a man who was no longer just a man. Tyler Graves, general, legend, humanity's spearhead. Years had passed since the impossible victory over the Exirthi, but the galaxy hadn't forgotten. Now he led not a squad of cadets, but the unified might of Earth's Deathworlders. We were underestimated once, Tyler said to his command. Never again. The Mezari invasion was merciless. Worlds burned, alliances crumbled, and ancient starfaring civilizations fell without a word. But not Earth. Never Earth. Under Tyler's command, humanity didn't just hold the line, they pushed it forward. Every battle became a lesson, every loss became fuel, every enemy that dared strike learned a single truth. Humanity adapts, humanity endures, humanity strikes back. In the Battle of Viridian Rift, the Mezari unleashed their strongest AI warform, pure death incarnate, calibrated to counter every known combat style. But it wasn't ready for chaos. It wasn't ready for human unpredictability. Tyler, quote, set forces broke formation, flanked with zero-hour improvisation, and cracked the warform open with guerrilla ingenuity and raw nerve. They study patterns, Tyler whispered through the comms, so we break every pattern. And when the smoke cleared, with Mezari wreckage drifting in zero-G silence, the galaxy watched and understood. This was humanity's vanguard, and Tyler Graves stood at its helm. The legend lives. Tyler's story becomes galactic history. They called it the miracle at Theta. Whispers of it had spread like fire through diplomatic halls and military bunkers. A handful of human cadets, barely trained, outgunned, outmatched, defeating the elite Exirthi War Legion in less than 5 hours. That victory had once felt like myth, but now, in every academy and council chamber across the galaxy, it was spoken of with reverence. They shouldn't have won, a Vostar philosopher once said, but that's why the story matters. The Mezari feared him, not just as a strategist, but as a symbol, because with every system reclaimed, every ship captured, Tyler Graves shattered more than battle lines. He shattered the illusion that humans were fragile. The great houses of Zarnov redrew their treaties. The elder AI collectives recalibrated their models, and the Exirthi, once proud and untouchable, had begun teaching Gravesian tactics in their own military academies. A memorial was erected on Theta Station, not just for the fallen, but for the birth of a new legend. It bore no statue, no weapons, just a single quote, etched in obsidian: adapt, overcome, win. Tyler Graves. Across the stars, children learned his name before they knew the names of planets, because this wasn't just a victory, it was a reckoning. And Tyler Graves had become the galaxy's proof that resilience was a weapon sharper than steel, a universe of infinite possibilities. The final thought: the war was far from over. Tyler knew that. He stood aboard the bridge of the Ragnarok Ascendant, staring out at the infinite cosmos beyond the viewport. Beneath his command, Earth's combined forces were preparing for the final siege on the Mezari core worlds. But his mind wasn't on tactics, not this time. It was on the truth that had carried them this far. We're not the strongest, he whispered, but we're the last ones standing. Other species had crumbled before the Mezari's perfection. They had technology, coordination, power, but humans had desperation, rage, hope. They made mistakes, but learned fast. They were messy, flawed, emotional, and that made them unstoppable. A message was sent across every channel, every relay, every race, still fighting to survive. In a universe filled with superior beings, only one truth remains: humanity will rise. And those words, spoken in Tyler's voice, echoed across 1,000 systems like a war cry. It wasn't just morale, it was belief, it was prophecy. Humanity had come from a single fragile world. Now, they stood in the heart of the stars, unbowed. Whatever came next, be it alien god, machine rebellion, or galactic apocalypse, Tyler knew humanity would find a way. They always had. Because the stars weren't just a frontier anymore, they were home, and no one defended their home like a human.